Hi there, and welcome to a new Plugin Guru video. My name is John Skippy Limcool, and I'm very glad to have you with me for this video. I'm going to release right now 4 videos that were made 4.5 years ago. They've been on my website, and you can go watch them there. And there's 10-minute versions of them here at YouTube. I now, as a partner with YouTube, I'm able to have videos of any length that I want. So I'm going to put all 4 full-length videos on YouTube so it's easier to find them. Quickly, if you want to get these libraries, Stylus RMX Power Pack is the Power Pack. Beatropolis is recycled drum loops and noises and effects and stuff that you can load. And then there's all the other libraries that are available on my site. I just released Omnichill. It's inspiring a lot of people, so that's great. And over here is my Facebook page, and just posted a thing about some new artists you can check out. There's stuff, there's Christmas sales going on. It's Christmas time in 2014 right now. So there you go. So please check these places out for resources, and that's nice. These 4 videos, there's an introduction, then we get eventually to the 4th one is showing you tips and tricks using this actual Power Pack of libraries that I created for the Power Pack. So please enjoy the full-length versions without having to search my website all over the place to find them. And more videos coming soon. Okay, see ya. Hi there, and welcome to Plugin Guru's Power Review for Stylus RMX. My name is John Skippy Limcool, and I'm going to be taking you through Stylus RMX version 1.8. 1.7 was introduced at the NAMM show, which added the new time designer and a whole lot of other new features, and 1.8 includes a completely new automation system to make automating RMX easier from within your sequencer. And so we're going to take a look at all sorts of abilities of RMX, not everything. If you need to know everything about RMX, Spectrasonics has some incredibly great video tutorials at spectrasonics.net. There's support for how to plug this into your sequencer and use it best with whatever your sequencer is, tricks, all sorts of things. But I'm going to give you just a really quick overview for those of you that haven't seen RMX, and I'm going to show you a lot of stuff you might not know about if you own Stylus RMX, because that's what Plugin Guru is all about. The music you're hearing in the background, these are all grooves created using this Power Pack that I've created for Stylus RMX 1.8. When 1.7 and 1.8 came out, there's no new multis, there's no new drum kits, there's no new, there are some new time designer templates that they created down here, and a few up here in the, right here. But with the Plugin Guru Power Pack, you've got all of these straight grooves, and you have all of these swinging grooves to play with, as well as 40 new drum kits. There's a whole bunch of new multis grouped by ambient, breakbeat, film, club, pops, and time signature, including things like techno waltzes and techno hip hop and stuff like that. And 7/8 progressive rock, why not? And finally, parts. This is an area that's never been supported by Spectrasonics, just because they made multis instead. But once you see how to use it, when you go open part, you have, with the Plugin Guru Power Pack, you've got 100 parts. And what this does is this will load into a single one of these 8 channels in RMX in the middle of working on a song or in the middle of production, and all of a sudden you go, oh man, I really need to have like a conga with nice reverb. So you go down here to the mixes and mix sweet conga in a room, sweet shaker, sweet tambo. There's also these pitch things, there's noise things, and then there's all these filter and chaos things, but you just need a little something weird in the background of your groove. They're there for you to open up, play with, and I've got a couple tricks to show you that will just open up massively what you can do with those. There's new drum loops coming out. Skippy's got new drum loops. They'll be coming out probably by June. So if you're not up to date, go to pluginguru.com, and in the top right corner there's a little thing to set up to get the newsletter by email, and I'll send out a little announcement when those are available, and keep you up to date with all the other power reviews for other plugins I'll be doing in the future. All right, let's get right into RMX. We're going to go to the core library, to the RMX grooves. There is a huge number of drum loops here, between 51 and 174 beats per minute. Anywhere from, this is supposed to be 80 beats per minute, so. As you can see, over here there's sweeps where you say no snare, no kick. There's so many different. speed that up. There's some crazy stuff. There's the drums. Here's bubble art. There's more European type of stuff. And these you need to really speed up, so speed them up. Now, if you've noticed, as I've sped it up and slowed it down, there's no audio change. There's no audio quality. The stereo imaging is kept. That's because it's not a loop. It's been torn apart into little tiny samples that represent each timing event. So when you play it back fast or slow, it just is speeding up or slowing down when it is going to play those parts. That's part of the power of Stylus RMX. Is every drum loop is a separate sample. So any of these you can call up and start playing it from your keyboard and sequence it and record it and make a new groove just by playing whatever you want to play. So there's all these loops in the RMX grooves. Classic Stylus, there's 4 gigabytes more of drum loops, all sorts of different styles. Groove elements, these are all sorts of isolated elements, just a bongo player playing bongos. Or cowbells if you need a cowbell part. Tons of kicks, tons of snares. The shakers are awesome. The fidelity is great. All sorts of different shakers. Triangles, tambourines, all these kind of elements that you might need to use in a music production at any time. Below this, these 2 libraries are actually separate libraries. The Stylus is what came from the original version of Stylus, and then RMX is the new stuff that came when Stylus became Stylus RMX. They've taken both those libraries and grouped them by musical styles. So if you need all the urban drum loops, you can quickly just go to urban and it will combine these 2 libraries and show you everything that's urban. Now below that is sound menus, and this is a different area of RMX that a lot of people never have discovered. And here you've got the access to tons and tons, like over 10,000 samples of anywhere from kicks and snares and hats, just menu after menu after menu after kicks. The ambient metals are all these really cool things for cinema things. If you go to the edit page, however, and reverse them and take the sample start to be later, you now have all these cool transitions that you can use in a dance song between one section of a song and another. So there's a little trick for you. Make sure you check out the turntable effects down here. Brass record scratching, acoustic guitar, acoustic bass. This is a DJ guy that's scratching all sorts of different things. You can go to the saxophone scratching. And so there's a ton of stuff in the sound menus. If you go to the mixer, you can go, instead of from drum loops, you can hit the kit button. And now it changes into a drum machine where you have 8 different samples that can be loaded. You've got factory kits that it came with. Electro, acoustic is not really its forte. This is more electronic kind of stuff. I did a couple acoustic type of kits. It's just, that's really not its forte. It's not a beat. It's about as close to acoustic as you can. There's other ones that are close to kick. A heavy rocker reverb. This is good acoustic, kind of a rocker, kind of a, let's see. But it's really great for more the dance kind of stuff. Deep Pain Club. That kind of thing, it's great. Tons of kits. So these are the Plugin Guru Power Pack kits that come with the Power Pack from the website. Hi there, and welcome to Plugin Guru's Power Review for Stylus RMX. My name is John Skippy Limcool, and this is part 2, all about parts. Part 1 was a simple introduction to give you an idea of what you can do with Stylus RMX. Part 2 is all about parts and what goes into making up a part and what things can you manipulate to change that part, because that's one of the coolest things with RMX is how drastically you can change what it starts with. Part 3 will be all about drum kits and multis, and part 4 is all about tips and tricks for using my power pack for Stylus RMX. If you don't know about my power packs, you can go to my website, pluginguru.com. There's a power pack and support. There's 2 videos for Native Instruments FM8. This is number 2 of 4 videos I'm making for Stylus RMX. And then there's a power pack, which is 200 patches, which give you new drum kits, new multis. There's never been any presets made for parts, and I made over 100 presets for parts, which is really cool. And I'll show you how to use those in this episode a little bit, and then a whole lot more in part 4, as well as time designer templates, which change the feel of the drum grooves. And we'll take a look at that a little bit in this episode. So let's get right into it. Here we go with parts. All right, so what is a part? A part technically is one of these 8 slots, these 8 numbers down here. It can be 8 different drum grooves, 8 different sound menus, or 8 different drum sounds in a drum kit. And we'll explore each of those in their respective episodes. With part 3, we'll be talking about drum kits and multis. So we'll get more into the whole multis of lots of drum loops being used all at one time, because that's one of the powers of RMX. But we're not going there today. We're just going to look at one part and what can you do with one part. And so for this one part, we're going to go to the user libraries. I want to use something from Beatropolis. So we're going to go to Too Busy, and there's our starting loop. And we're going to do the best we can to mangle this so that it's almost unrecognizable. Let's go over to Edit. So Edit is a whole complement of synthesizer parameters to work with. Filters, pitch, you've got LFOs, you've got envelopes. And let's take a look at what we can do with these. So if we play this loop, pitch is the most basic starting point. This is semitones tuning. It's up 2 octaves or down. Now if you make something really low in pitch, go over here to the amp, bring down hold, now you can decay to kill some of the extra wolfiness of it. You can shape it better this way, see? Alright. Hold down Command and click, and parameters go back to where they're supposed to be. Now, the other area that's most commonly used in the work that I've done with RMX when I'm like using this in a music situation is the master filter. It's a simplified version of the power filter, in that to the right is a high pass filter and to the left it's a low pass filter, and emphasis basically is resonance. So as you hear, the low frequency is gone. And I can determine exactly how much body I want to have from this element. This is really important when you start dealing with multis, when you start having something this is your low end, this is your body, this is your high end ear candy that you want. Then this master filter becomes really, really handy. Now to the left, it's a low pass filter, so all the high end's gone. If you bring it resonance or emphasis, you can get it to like emphasize a certain frequency. Go back to amp, make it really short. Kind of cool. Then you use EQ to like just emphasize that frequency a little bit more, and you got a really cool sound. All right, so let's hold down Command. Now the difference between the power filter and the master filter is that the master filter, think of these as like your EQ settings on your stereo. Whereas with power filter, you can get into a lot more of the synthesizer types of uses of filters. You have LFOs and you have envelopes, which can do some really great things. So let's turn on the loop. Let's go low pass filter. They have the drive really low, because if you bring resonance up and you bring cutoff down, it's gonna get really loud. I'm not gonna do that, so I'm gonna bring up the drive a little bit, make it fuller. Bring down cutoff. No resonance right now. Now, if you go to the filter envelope and you go to the depth and you bring this up, It's a really short filter envelope. If I have it really long, then it's almost no different than the original. But by bringing down the decay, remember, every single sample in this drum loop is its individual sample. So by using the synthesizer parameters like fast envelopes, you can do all these cool little chiffy things that would be impossible if this was just an audio file. You couldn't get this unless you had a special plugin that was doing that for you. But here it's very easy because it's there. You've also got control over pitch. So another cool thing to do, make it brighter. Go to pitch. This is really great for chiffy things. Make it shorter. You just get a little tiny cool attack. You set it up just right. So there's all these kind of controls to work with. Let's take a look at the filter LFO. So let's bring this back down. By the way, let's talk also real quickly. Let's go filter, turn off the envelope. We've got resonance and then width. And width is kind of interesting because most synthesizers don't even give you a width parameter, but this gives you the control over the shape of the resonance, whether it's more this type of a shape or more like a U shape where it's got two frequencies. So if you bring it down to the bottom, that's like one frequency. So if you bring up resonance really high, it'll self-oscillate. But if you bring up width, you're going to hear it split, and it's going to go farther apart from each other. To be two different frequencies. It's cool. But I just want one frequency. So if you just want one frequency in your resonance, have your width at the bottom. If you want it to be more complex. By the way, we're not there yet, but if you go to effects, there is an effect called power filter. And it's the exact same as that power filter. And if you hit the more button, you've got modulation controls for both cutoff and width. You don't have control with an LFO to control width from within the edit page, but you do in the effect. So for those of you that are into that kind of thing, if you want to be modulating, if you hear that width changing, going like, oh man, I'd love to be going like, you can do that, but you have to use the effect version of that filter since it's not available here. But you do have cutoff. So if we turn back on the loop, single loop, or single frequency, go to filter and bring up the depth. Now, if you hit retrigger, this says that it's going to have the very beginning of the LFO at beat 1, so it cycles and it's in tight sync, which is what we want. Now, rate. This is a good point to point out this little area right here. As I've moved things, you see that little box changes. That box is really important because that is your parameter information. There's no parameter number on any of these sliders. It's just a slider. So to see what the parameter is, you keep your eye right here in this little box to tell you. This tells you right now that the LFO is cycling at a 1-to-1 cycle, which means it'll do a full cycle in one measure. So when I hit play, now if I wanted to do that in 2 cycles, go to rate and change it to 2 times. That's the bottom for the second one. That's back at the top. Here you have different shapes. So you could say like, this is a good shape here. Say like 1/8 notes. Because now it's got a cool attack to it. So you can make stuff like that. Easy. Kind of cool, huh? So that's the LFO. Now you can do this also to pan. That could be going on and go to pan. And I want to go to amp. Let's put it to square wave. And let's set sync and retrigger and have this be like half notes. And watch this. Because it's a square wave, so it's up, then it's down, up, down, up, down. So if you want, you can change your rate to be 2 times. So now it shows from 1 measure, and then it's gone from measure. Isn't that cool? So you have those kind of controls inside of this for changing the loop. So already, let me turn off the amp one, but even just between these 2 parameters, I mean, that's very different than the original drum loop, I would think, right? So there you go. That's just a start of some of the tools you have to play with for the part as far as edit parameters go. The effect page allows you to have up to 3 effects as inserts. And then there's 4 auxiliaries. And the auxiliaries show up on the mixer page right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I want just reverb, lower reverb, delay. And these are really cool because it's global, which means you can have this reverb, and now you can have 8 different parts. You can have different amounts of that reverb. If you want a specific reverb, then you would go to the insert. You could say go to the Pro Reverb, make it short. Hit the More button if you want to control separate timing, width, diffusion, freeze. The compressors are awesome. These are serious compressors. Bring down threshold. Now, if you want to hear that, attack a little bit. If you want to squash it, just bring down your attack, bring up your gain. No more body. Killed it. I'm squashing it. Now, another thing that's kind of cool. There's all these presets. If you right click, you've got also a handful of presets to get you going. Control click will also get you here for each effect. So I can go like that. Let's choose a chorus echo, which is a newer effect. Let's right click and again, look down here at this little box. Maybe even more important for the effects because the balance is so sensitive, and a very, very small balance is going to give you a lot of effect. All right, another thing you can do with the effects is load up a preset. And if you right click up here, you've got all sorts of, these will load up to 3 effects that when you apply it to one patch, let's go Overdriven. I love Primal Screamer. Bring down the mix. Very bizarre. Excuse me. Let's go Talking Overdrive. So all these are presets that you can just call it by right clicking. Ambient spaces. Let's go to space. A lot going on there. So effects. Huge amount of choices to work with. Let's get to chaos. So we turn on loop. Turn on chaos by turning on the power button. And I leave that on all the time when I'm using this in a song, because I'm going to assign things to the sliders that I can bring up, and when I bring it back down to 0, it's off. So this slider determines the percentage of random. If I bring pattern all the way up, it's taking all the snippets that make up this loop and rearranging how it's going to play them. But it does it in a very smart way. There's actually some smart thought going into how it works. So when you bring up, you can actually get really cool things by using it just as, and it's never the same. So repeat, kind of cool, like timing stuttering. It doesn't do shorter timing. That's where you would use buzz for, which we'll get to in a minute. Reverse. There's reverse. By the way, you have a reverse button right here. That's basically what all that's doing. But now you can randomize it. So you can go reverse just a little bit, and now every now and then just sticks in the little reverse thing here and there. It's very cool. All right, now we get to timing. This has to do with the feel. You can do subtle. If you bring this time 100%, how big of a range do you want? Really wide range? Now listen. It's all over the place. It's rushing and dragging randomly. If I want, I could say I just wanted to rush. So now it's rushing all the time. Or I could say drag. It's really hard to hear that without having another part to compare it to, but I'm not going to set that up. All right, pitch is really awesome. This gives you all the ability to do all sorts of random. And you can say you just want it to be up and really wide range. So it won't go below the original pitch of the drum loop or down, where it will only go as far down as you say with your range. If I say just a little range, Now it's just a little range going down from the original pitch. If you have it right in the middle, then it's going to randomize going up some, and it's going to randomize going down some. Dynamics. This is volume. This only works if velocity is turned on the amp. If this is off, it doesn't do anything, because what it's doing is it's randomizing the velocity values. So if you go back to chaos, you can say wide range, soft only from the original down, which actually makes sense for this particular sound because it's a full-length drum loop. This doesn't do anything. You don't hear any change. So it's only getting softer is where you're going to hear change. All right. Finally, buzz. Buzz is awesome. This creates repeating little short snippet buzzes, kind of the end sound right now. And there's a lot of cool parameters here to work with. One to use right away if you want is this blue light. That makes the buzzes softer than the original hit. So they're softer, just a little bit, but it makes a difference. So I keep that on usually. Time. You bring it down in this range, about 9 o'clock or so, it becomes like a 30-second note buzz roll. Bring down even more. So you can do that kind of thing. Now, if you want, you can go to speed, and I can say I want to speed it up. So I want to call it up. And I want to give some range to timing, or speed, slow down. So start fast, but slow it down. You get all these really weird things if you play it right. So now let's have some fun for a minute. Let me show you something. Let's go to MIDI learn control, touch the buzz, and then my mod wheel. And let's do the same thing for a couple other things. So we go learn control. Let's say learn pattern. Also to my mod wheel. Let's bring the timing. So you can do all sorts of cool stuff real quickly. And this happens even while it's playing from your sequencer. So right there you can do breaks in your song. So easy. So there you go. That's chaos. All right, so we've taken a look at edit, effects, and chaos. Now let's look at time designer. So if we turn on time designer and hit play, right here are your basic controls for eighth notes. And you have a percentage, so you want to get really out there, a little bit out. You can do that. There's all sorts of machine templates. So MPC 60, if you want a 58% swing from MPC 60, there you go. If you want to try out the TR-808 straight, and they feel different. Everything feels different. Logic's templates are in here, so you can go. That feels different. I found a really cool trick I got to show you with the whole time designer template thing. And now's a good time to do it. So if we go core library, one of the RMX grooves is so many loops. Spectacular. Here we go. So this is James Brown. Kind of a groove. Sounds very much like it. They nailed the sound of it quite well. But the feel's not quite there. Just so happens you've got these templates, and then if you want, you can make your own templates. And with the Plug and Groove Power Pack, I include a whole bunch of time designer templates that I've created, and they are right here under the little triangle next to time designer. So if I hit play, these completely change the feels. So you can go to clav pattern, Really forces the notes to be a completely different feel, or hip hop. But one that I didn't realize until just recently, the amen break. Put these two together and it's awesome, because here's the amen break chopped apart timing wise perfectly. It's a great feel now. Here's the original. A little too skippy and so isn't that cool? The Time Designer allows you to change the feel completely of when it's going to play the snippets that make up a loop. And it can be drastic or it can be very minimalistic. It just depends on which template you're using. A lot of these here are straight templates that are like 16th notes, but they're pushed and pulled in different amounts to give you different. SP1200 feel is different than this. And the way you do that is you record a drum machine playing 16th notes at different, swing settings. You record that, then you use Recycle to chop up every single one into its own little timing event, and then you load that as a MIDI event, a MIDI file. You just drag any MIDI file you want into this page right here, and Time Designer will take that and use it as a MIDI file for a new Time Designer template. That's how I made all of the templates that I have here. These all came from MIDI files that I created from programming a feel first and then putting it in here. So if I say sparse groove, this is really sparse, and because sometimes you don't want loops to just be playing all the time. So Time Designer, change the feel. It's as simple as that. It's so easy to use. I use this more than any other part of RMX, and it will blow you away what you can do if you haven't been here before. And that is under the grill right here. If you click, there's edit group. And what this allows you to do that's completely mind-blowing is separate all the little snippets into different groups. And each group can have its own edit parameters for filters, LFOs, envelopes, pitch, effects. You can have a compressor on just certain group, or you can have chaos affecting a certain group and not affecting another group. So let's take a look real quick. Let's take this sound. I'm gonna make the whole thing dark to start with. This is the easiest way to show you how this works. Okay, it's really dark. Whole thing's dark. I want the snares to pop. I want to do that automatically for me. How can I do that? Go to Assign, right here, Backbeat. Choose Backbeat. Now, if you click right here, there's two groups. There's the main group, and there's Backbeat. And if you solo, what do you know? Backbeat 2 and 4. There they are by themselves. So now I can go to my master filter, bring that up, and just those snippets are affected. Let's go to effects, and let's put a compressor on those snippets too. So they really, I want them to hit really hard. What about the kicks? Well, let's just go 1 and 3. And for this one, I want it to be huge compressor as well, but I want to do a reverb first. Let me make this good. And then a compressor. So in a matter of a few seconds, I have completely changed this loop. You would not recognize this from where it came from, right? That's because of edit groups. You can separate each group if you want. Let me show you a couple other examples that are really useful. Say you take, let's go to the core library. Let's say that we're going along and there's so many things that are cool and have just too much going on. Like Totally Insane. Let's say I just want the snares. Go 2 and 4, solo. I just got that really cool element of that snare. And now we're starting to build multis, which is part 3. But if you go to this part and say, go to something else, let's say redisco. Then you go over here, assign 2 and 4, and mute them. So I'm taking and I'm putting the snare in from this one, from the first part. That's the snare we're hearing, and I've muted the snare from the second part. You can go crazy with this capability. The options are astronomical. And then finally, one thing to show you with this to really completely blow you away. And it's easy to use. Trust me, all you do is you go choose a timing value and then you hit solo or mute. I hope I'm not scaring you away from using this because it's the coolest thing in the world. But we're going to do something really more on the complex side right now real quickly. Like that kick. That kick is not a standard, just, you can't say on the edit group page, you can't say 1 and 3 and it's going to select all the kicks. It's just going to select some of them. Oh. I'm on part 2. If I solo, some of the downbeats are hi-hats, so that doesn't work. So I need to choose a different way. Let's first of all go clear all edit group assignments. So now we're back to main. There's only one. It's got the hi-hat part and the snare here, and the kicks are up here. So it's not even sequentially happening, but there they are starting there. I just want this kick. I don't want to hear any of the snares or hi-hats. So I play the first kick, go create edit group. First play a MIDI note. So I played my MIDI note. I've now made a group. And if you go up here and you say enable the add or remove slice, there's this cool little button that shows up on top of the edit group area. And when I play this note, it says, do you want to remove this slice? No, because I want to add more to this. So I play any other note that's not part of that group, and it's going to change to say add slice. So I play each kick and I add just the kicks. There's only 6 of them. So now I can sit solo. Oh, turn off. There's all the kicks. Let me show you one more example to make sure we got this. I mean, it's so easy to use this, and it's something you should use all the time. So I want to make sure you really get it. So let's call up a drum groove. Sphincter. I want that snare to snap a little more. So all you do is you go 2 and 4, go to effects, tape compressor or vintage compressor. Bring the threshold down just a little bit. That's gonna sit in the mix really great. Maybe you want the EQs. A lot of times with these sounds, they're kind of conservative on the EQs, so you can get that snare to sing a little bit better. You're done. It's going to sound so much better in the mix like this than like that. Might be a little loud, so you go to your gain, bring it down, your gain. So there. That is parts. The ability to take a drum loop and by using these parameters, what the part is isn't what the part's going to be. And you've got control over the mix of it in so many cool ways that you really should explore everything you can do with the part. So, all right, so that's all we're going to talk about now for parts. Part 3 will be about multis and drum kits. Part 4 is tricks for using the RMX Power Pack. Make sure you go to my website, pluginguru.com, and check out all the goodies. Both the Power Pack for RMX and for Native Instruments FM8, there's free demo downloads, so you can get a taste of this stuff. You get 10% of the Power Pack for RMX, and then once you play with it a little bit, you'll want the other 90%. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next review. Hi there, and welcome to Plugin Guru's Power Review for Stylus RMX. My name is John Skippy Limcool, and this is episode 3 of my series on Stylus RMX. We're going to be looking at drum kits and multis. The power that you can apply to them within this plugin is pretty cool, very exciting. So we'll be looking at that in this episode. The next episode and the final one for RMX is going to be showing you tips and tricks for how to use my Power Pack. Now, if you don't know about the Power Pack, go to pluginguru.com. I have a Power Pack both for Stylus RMX and a Power Pack for Native Instruments FM8, which provide custom patches that I've made for these plugins that are fun to use, cool sounds. You always need new sounds, new drum kits, new multis. I supported parts, which is something that wasn't supported ever before in RMX, and time designer templates. So there's a lot of stuff there to play with, and there's demo versions of both the FM8 and the RMX banks to check out and download for free. So let's get right into it. I want to get with kits first, and then we'll get to multis after that. Drum kits work with RMX in a different way than multis, in that the 8 timbres, instead of being loops, are used to load up drum sounds. And these drum sounds are found only in the drum kit mode. That's because this is a single sample in a specific area on the keyboard. For example, the kick drum, plays B and C. Then D and E are your snares. Then side stick is next on C sharp. Then D, claps, hi-hats, toms, ride. And then the cymbals is a group of cymbals that are mapped to. If you want to change something, all you gotta do is hit the folder button, scroll down to the kicks, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different categories, and then to the right in each of those categories are all the elements of kicks, and there's a ton. You won't find a lot of different like acoustic 18-inch, drum workshop, or it's more drum electronic dance. These kind of kicks. What I wanted to show you is this. I have a song that I've created inside of Logic that's just, it's 2 massive parts with 2 sounds for massive I've made. The next thing I'm going to support after Stylus RMX is Native Instruments Massive, because it's a very powerful, confusing synthesizer. And lots of people have sent me notes saying that they wish that would be next, and so I think that's what we'll do next. And it's a good sounding synthesizer. It makes some cool sounds. So I've got a bass and a lead kind of thing, and I'm going to mute the drums to start with. So we got drums just going along with it. And I can change kits. And each kit's going to have a different personality. Here's Fire Dragon. Ugly Truth. They're all going to have different personalities because that's what you want to do. Now there's some cool tricks you can do with the drum kit once you've sequenced your part. And that's really what I want to focus on with this episode, because making kits, one cool trick you can do, by the way, is if you take 2 timbres and assign them to 2 kicks, then you're going to have 2 drum sounds that are kicks layered down on there on C. I use that a lot of times for toms, to take one element of a tom and then something else. It'd be more like a longer decayed type of a tom and layer them together. A couple of the kits in the Power Pack, I've done things like that. But you can figure that out. That's not too hard to play around with. But what I want to show you is dealing with automating chaos and effects with your drum kit, either globally or else on a per drum basis. So to start with, let's go to the effect page. Reverb's very short, kind of little room thing. I want to make it longer. I'm going to turn it down. It's one of the auxiliary channels, and the way that works is insert effects are the inserts that are on that specific drum sound, and they're exclusive to that drum sound. Then you have 4 auxiliaries, and these can be shared by all the different loops or different drum sounds just by where you have your sliders over here for auxiliary 1, 2, 3, 4. You can automate these knobs. So I'm going to take this knob and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say MIDI learn control, and I'm going to touch that, and then I'm going to move there. And I want to do it to the kick drum also. So we'll touch this here and we'll say, oh, we got to do a MIDI learn here. So now when my sequence is playing, I can add that kind of crazy stuff. Let's go to the effects, and on another controller, I'm gonna go to the master, and I want to have a cool retro flanger. Let's sync it to be 8th notes. Quarter notes. Quarter notes will work. So we say MIDI learn control. And let's move the balance slider. And let's move a slider over here on my keyboard. Maybe we want to rate to be slower. Let's say like halftime. So if you want to do some cool, bring the let's go to one time. So there you go. Just record another track of controller from your keyboard controller doing that, and you started to add some really cool effects. Let's go to chaos, and let's add chaos to the snare. So for this, let's just solo. Let's turn it on. I want to find something kind of like just a little trippy. Range for speed. That'd be kind of fun, right? So I'm going to turn it off, say learn, control, hit the power switch, and then hit a slide over here. Let's do to the hi-hats also. So you click 5, so now we're on the hi-hats. And you can nail the pitch if you want, so I could listen to this. Let's do that. So we go learn control, power switch. And let's go to the kick drum. Let's go back to soloing this guy here. Don't try this in your song maybe, but it's still just to get the point across what you can do. So go MIDI learn, control, click the power switch. And I'm assigning these all to the same slider. So I move one slider, and now chaos is turned on for both kick, snare, and hat. So I can, I have one slider for kick, snare, and hat, and I have one slider for the reverb on the kick and snare, and then the third slider is for the flanger. So by just turning those on, you get the idea. You can take your pattern that's there, and now you can add all this variety. And if I was recording that, it would be playing it back exactly the way that I want it to do. So instead of having to go in and edit all that manually by hand, you can use automation of chaos and the effects that are built into the RMX to do some pretty cool things. So there you go with drum kits. Now let's go to multis. Working with multis has changed considerably from a couple of versions ago. 1.7 introduced a really powerful new feature called Host Sync that we'll take a look at. For talking about multis, I'm using a mock-up song I did real quickly. It's bass line and a synth lead and a pad and some rhythm stuff comes in at measure 9. So we have something to work with because we know we want to build up a song around this. Now, before version 1.7, if I wanted to use this groove, I would have to go over to the folder, to the directory, and I'd have to click and drag the MIDI file. And no, I don't want to drag it on that track. I have to freeze tracks because my computer can't play everything, unfortunately. But anyway, now if I hit play, there you go. You could set it to groove menu, which is cool because if you need to do just a quick and dirty, you can play the grooves, disco breakdowns, just by playing notes. But we want to do more than this. We want to use multiple tracks and have, different effects on hi-hats versus snares, different compressors on the kick drum, and we want to, have some flexibility with outputs, all sorts of options. So we're going to use multis instead of a single track. So let's put this back to slice menu. Because of Host Sync, I can just now hit play. There it is. What this means is now you can go to any of the factory multis. You can go to all the expander multis, anywhere. Take any of these guys, even the plug-in guru multis that I've created, and just select them. Let's say we choose mid-tempo. There's a couple that are kind of cool. Düsselheim. Now, as you'll notice that the Host Sync will turn off because the on and off of Host Sync is stored with the multis, and it didn't exist when most of these multis were made. So it's always off, and then you turn it on, and then when you hit play, there you go. Got a cool track. We could go to somewhere else just to give you ideas. Go to heavy duty. And hit Host Sync once it loads up. And check it out. You couldn't do this before 1.7. It would take going to each one of these directory pages and dragging over multiple MIDI files for each of the parts. And there's how many parts? There's 6 parts here. So you have to drag 6 parts over MIDI file wise into your sequencer before you could even audition it with your song. So Host Sync has opened up some really, really exciting, cool new abilities using RMX. So we're going to go to the plugin guru multis, and I have a folder called Club. And there's one here that we're going to play with. It's called Euro Shuffle Tech. And now since I have a kick that's so low and the bass is low, I'm going to take and immediately go to part 1. Have a little bit of low end. Let's stop at about 350 or so. It's going to sound better in the mix. Here we go. Cool. But I want the hi-hat to be more of an 8th note instead of a 16th note pattern. So I'm going to go over here and let's see what we can do. Let's hit solo. So we just hear the hi-hat part. Now there's 2 ways to do this. You could just go to time and collapse it down to like quarter notes here. But the problem is that any of these notes, there's 3 or 4 for each of the 16th note sections that are going to be grouped on top of each other. So if I say quarter notes, when I play it, you hear that it's flanging because there's so many parts playing. Let's say no groove lock. Now let's go over here instead, and let's use edit group to first go and select just quarter notes, then hit solo. So we just have a single guaranteed hit on each of those quarter notes. Then go to, let's turn off solo so we can hear now. It's on the downbeats. It's not on the upbeats. And for this, we want it to be on the upbeats. So you go to the time shift by an 8th note. And here we go. Cool. And I want to add, let's say from the from the user libraries, from Beatropolis, I want to add a Kevin Rankin rock drum groove. Now, when I play this, it's a little too busy. So I'm going to show you a trick. There's a lot of loops that you'll find as you're working with RMX that it does more than you need it to do. And there's a cool thing you can do. By changing the time meter to 2/4, it goes to just 2 meters. And I needed to pop a little more, so let's put a compressor on it. Vintage compressor, bring down the threshold so it's not quite so hot. Here we go. Cool. But now, what if I told you that without adding any MIDI file data to this track, we can automate soloing just a kick drum to start with, for example, and then having, I want to add one more part. But instead of doing it this way, I'm going to load a part that I created in the Power Pack down here in the open parts area. This is loading something that's totally programmed and does all sorts of crazy stuff. I'm going to use Backbeat Acidizer. Let's solo it so you can hear what it does. It's this guy right here. This weird stuff going on. Let's bring up this delay. All right. So turn on host sync. Let's do this. We're going to go to Logic now. Bring this down so I can see the automation parameters and zoom in a little bit so it's a little bit easier. And we're going to go over here to RMX, and this is the automation list. And you'll notice it goes. But anyway, so here we go at the bottom of this list after 127. There's additional automation parameters, and they include level, mute, pan, and solo. So you can now automate the level of all of your timbres without needing to make multi-instruments on different MIDI channels and then automating it that way. You just do it with automation on a single track. It's cake. It is so easy. So all you have to do now is we want to go to level major 8 and have solo on for... That's it. It's automatically working, you know? And then I want to go to part 2, the hi-hats. Go down to the bottom of the list. Hurry up. Hello. Part 2 solo. And we're going to have that off until measure 5. And then we'll have it come off at measure 8. 8's when we're going to bring in some chaos for a minute with that that part that I loaded, the Backbeat Acidizer. You'll see. I'll show you. There we go. So now we got kick by itself. All right, right there. Let's click on this and go to part 6. Part 6 solo. And let's say no solo until measure 8. And then you get to be the star for a minute. And then you're going to go off at measure 9. So this is just, it's you know, it's quite fast what you can now do to create automation. No dragging of MIDI parts and muting and unmuting and soloing and all the stuff you have to do in the past. Here we go. There's a hi-hat. Part 6 was supposed to, oh, you know what I got to do? I need to include a part 6 mute. Part 6. mute. And right here, we'll tell it to mute. And before that, not mute. So there we go. Right at major 9, we mute. Don't mute until then. So there we go. There you go. So it's now very easy to automate solo, level, mute. All sorts of controls are now just cake to work with. All right, so that's one way to use multis with Stylus RMX. I'm going to show you another way here in a second. I'm going to get Logic set up a different way, and I'll show you something else. Okay, here's another example using Stylus RMX. The goal here is I want one track to have some variable stuff going on pattern-wise, not just everything being loops that are played with host sync turned on. And to demonstrate this, I went over and I hit the plus button and I had RMX come up as a multi-timbral instrument instead of a single timbred instrument. And I had it set to 8, so it made 8 variances of RMX. And I've named the first 5 because I'm going to use a multi that has 5 parts. So we'll just make it simple. This means that if you look over here, each one of these is now on its own MIDI channel. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what I want to do is I've called up another Plugin Guru Power Pack multi called Hardcore Horde. It's in the breakbeat category. So if we call it up, make sure we're starting from scratch. Host sync will go off. Now, I don't want that, so let's mute that. Don't want that. Maybe I want just that. I think that's cool. But the drums, I want them to, this drum part right here in particular, I want that to be doing some cool things. I want it to be doing some variation fills and stuff like that. But just to show you how you can do it without even programming anything. So what we're going to do is on part 4, go to part 4 and you option click off host sync for part 4. So part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are still, so those parts are going to play. Part 4 is not. So that means I need to go over here to the little directory and click and drag part 4 and put it at major 1. So what we're going to do now, let's go to chaos. I'm going to turn on chaos, and while it's playing, I'm going to bring this up. So I want to capture some of that. So I go. Oh, I need to. All right. So it captured all of that quickly as a groove. So now when I go to 5, all right, I like that. So let's, I'm on the wrong page. Go over here and click split, chop. And then we'll take those last 2 majors too for a cool thing. So we can now go shorten this by 1 major and stick this groove in here. get rid of this, go back to the main groove, and let's use that for the next section, but only for 2 majors instead of 3 majors. And then let's stick this little extra 2 major fill on at the end. There. Now let's check it out. Cool fill. Cool. It's kind of cool. So that's using chaos. All you do is turn on chaos, bring up the pattern variation, hit capture. When it stops, that's when you know that you've captured, and you just click and drag here to drag the MIDI file up here, and then chop and paste to set it up exactly where it's doing what you want it to do when you want it to do it. It's incredibly powerful and very fun. All right, well, that's where we're going to stop for this one. We could keep going. There's so much more to talk about, but this is a good stopping point, I think, to give you some ideas to push you in a direction to use RMX in ways maybe you haven't before. Don't be afraid of multis. Multis are awesome, multi-groove, ready to use in your music productions, and with the host sync button, it's easy to use them. So there you go. Next video is going to be tips and tricks for my power pack. By the way, go to pluginguru.com to get your copy of the power packs for FM8 as well as for Stylus RMX. And hopefully by sometime in November, early December, I'll have a power pack of patches for Native Instruments Massive. That's what I'm working on now. And it's coming out great. So we will see you in the next episode. Bye. Hi there, and welcome to Plugin Guru's Power Review for Stylus RMX. This is part 4. We're going to be taking a look at the power pack for Stylus RMX that I've created, that you can get both the demo version or buy the full version at pluginguru.com. $30 for the power pack. And then I'm going to also show you a little bit about the drum loop library. I've created Beat Tropless, Volume 1 and Volume 2. You can get both volumes for $50. And it's a whole bunch of new drum loops for Stylus RMX. I'm going to show you how to get those into RMX. So basically, we're going to show both how to get things in and where they show up in RMX, and then show you some tricks on each of the different modes that I support, because we all need more tricks, right? So let's not delay anymore. Let's get right to it. All right, let's take a look at the Finder. Let's go over here. And you'll see over here is the Plugin Guru Power Pack. Now, if you have the demo version of the Power Pack, it's laid out the same way. It's just fewer presets, 10% or something like that of the whole library. If you open this up, as you can see, you have 4 different folders. And some of these have folders within folders. And I'm going to show you where they go. So you'd find your Sage folder, and I keep my Sage folder on my main computer hard drive in a sample library folder. And then there is a folder called Sage, which every RMX must have Sage. So do a search for all large caps Sage, and you'll find it. And inside of there, you will find these 4 folders. And if you open up the Stylus RMX one, you will see you have patches and presets. And these are the 2 areas where things go. So you take the multis, and you can just drag the whole folder of multis into the multis folder. And that way the factory multis will show up. And then you have the Plugin Guru multis. I took all the expander libraries and put them into one separate folder called expander libraries. You can set it up however you want. So then you go to parts. And parts, there's 100 parts. And it actually works easier if you just select all of these and click and drag them up to the parts folder, because there's no other parts in this folder unless you've made some, which is highly unlikely since most people don't even really get the concept of parts. But we're going to talk about that in a minute, because you should be using parts. So they go in there. Kits, you can just take this folder and put it into the kits folder. And that we have factory kits, plugin guru kits, and user kits. And that way they show up pretty easily. And then Time Designer templates go in a different place. They go in presets. There's a folder in there called Time Designer. And inside of here is where you'll see where I've put the straight and the swinging Time Designer template folders. So you just drag these and put them up there, and there you go. Now, once you've done that, when you go back to RMX, and let's hide everybody. I need my notes up. You go over here to, say we want to go to multis. So you go to the mixer. There you go. You got the factory multis. Then you have the plugin guru multis. And I've got them grouped into organizational little folders. User multis and expander multis. If you change this to kits, and you click up here, you'll now have the factory kits, and then you'll have plugin guru kits. And there's all the kits that come with the full version of RMX, the Power Pack. When you go to Time Designer templates, they don't show up. There's two places where things show up in Time Designer templates. Down here are kind of like built in for the machine template, logic, groove, feel. Feel is kind of like these are based on MIDI files. So it's kind of what I'm doing. So you can go through these and play with them. Some of them are really useful. Up here, there's a little triangle to the right of Time Designer. And if you click here, there's example Time Designer templates. I have one called New Project, and I'll show you about that in a minute. And then here's all the straight groove, and then here's all the swinging groove Time Designer templates. So that's what you get when you are working with the Plugin Guru Power Pack. Now, with Beatropolis, it's a little bit different. Hide that. This is something that's going to eventually end up in the Sage libraries, in the user libraries, right here in Skippy's Beatropolis, right here. But you don't put it in there yourself. What you do is you use the Sage converter. And with this, you can convert any Recycle RX2 library into a usable library for Stylus RMX to use. If you just do a Google search for RX2 Recycle drum loops or Recycle loops, you'll find free ones as well as a whole bunch of libraries that people sell. Anyway, all you do is you take the folder after you've unzipped it, and inside of here are all the Recycle files, right? Just take the whole entire folder and you drag that. I'll get back here to Sage. You drag this right here and you let go, and it will start to automatically convert it. And you're done. Basically, that's all you have to do is wait while it converts it. Now when you go over to Mixer, be in multi-mode. When you go over here to selecting patches, and instead of the core library, you go to user libraries. And here's where you click right here under user libraries, and right here's where all the libraries work up. So here's Beatropolis. So you can choose, and off you go, you know. There it is. And we'll show you tricks on Recycle stuff in a minute. But first, let's show you some stuff with multis. All right, so here we go. All right, so we're going to take a look at multis and give you a couple of tricks and tips for using not only the Plugin Guru multis, but of course, any multi. So if we go to the Plugin Guru multis, you see there's ambient, breakbeat. Let's go to club, like simple techno. The first thing to know is that host sync is a new feature that simplifies using these multis or using anything in RMX. As soon as you hit host sync, when you hit play in your sequencer, it starts to play, and it'll play at whatever your tempo is. So if I say 135, there you go. So it used to be you had to go over here and you had to drag MIDI files into wherever your arrange page was for each part before you could ever even play a multi, besides just auditioning it inside of RMX. But now you can go to any multi. You can go to choose to any one. I just hit a button. So now if I don't have host sync on, it's not going to play when I hit play in Logic. It's going to be like, yeah, right, you know. But if I hit host sync, off you go. So that's one of the coolest new additions to RMX is host sync. So get used to that button. Now, one thing I should say is if you're doing a song and you want it to be really, really a tight feeling song, you might at the end want to drag the MIDI files into your arrange page. It plays in a different way. I don't think it's like off, but it feels different. And I think it's a little bit tighter feel if the MIDI file data is actually inside of the arrange page or in your sequencer playing instead of playing by host sync. But to quickly audition the loops and quickly audition the multis, this is awesome. The one other part I wanted to talk about real quickly is, this one's not bad, but if you go to some of these, especially with some of the expander packs that we created, but I'm guilty of doing it in these too. Sometimes you'll add extra parts. When we're making the multis, we want it to be really big and huge and impressive and all that. So some of these will have a lot of stuff. There's pitch in there. What if that's not the pitch of your song? I'm going to show you that real quick. So these two are the pitch elements. First, you could just mute those, and you got a cool groove. I'll slow it down. Oh, there. Now I got hosting, so it'll play right. So you can mute them, but what if you wanted to change the pitch so that what you have to do, click on 1, go to pitch, let's take it up 3. Now I'm going to quickly go over here to 3, because I remembered it's part 3 for the other one, and go to now it's in a different key. So there you go. So you can either transpose the parts that have pitch or just mute the parts that you don't want. And you can also do that via automation. I showed you in, I think it was part 3, all sorts of things about automation and how you can quickly go through and add muting and unmuting of any part while it's playing in a sequencer. You don't have to, it's extremely easy to do. So you can mute parts that way as well. To like, say you wanted to have mute the tambourine, mute these guys, maybe mute the drum bass, so it's just the drum groove. Then when you get to the verse, or when you get to choruses, you could do it that way. I could talk for a minute about multi-outs because that's a really powerful part of RMX. Let me open up my arrange page. Go away for a second. If you go over here, let me move this so that it's go up the mixer page actually like this. So if you click down on RMX, I can quickly change it from being just a stereo output to a multi-output inside of Logic Pro. I don't know how it works in other sequencers because I only use Logic Pro. And it's going to reload the exact same thing I had, but now it's in multi-output configuration. And in order to get things to go to the multi-outputs, you click down this little plus, and it adds an auxiliary. And if I go over here, and let's say I want the drum groove to go output B. So then you go over here to the input, and you go to instrument 1. Oh, maybe it'd be just 3/4, because output 1, 2 is connected to here, so it'd be 3/4. So that way, when I hit play, it's its own thing right here. So I can have it muted. Let's say I wanted to add a big kick drum to this. So I could go over to the groove elements, kicks. We're going to do this really fast. Okay. And we want this to be output C. So now I have to click the plus button. Output 5 and 6. Oh, there it is already. Nice. So now when I hit play, they're on their separate little things. Separate channels. Quick and easy. So that's how you work with multi-outputs. You change the outputs here, but in order for that to work, you have to change RMX to be multi-output. You have to add auxiliary channels, and you have to rechannel each of those auxiliaries to match which grouping of audio you want it to be, which stream you want it to be. If you don't have one selecting outputs 3 and 4, then output B in RMX won't work. and 5 and 6 is C, 7 and 8 is D, and on and on. So you have 8 possible stereo groupings for each of the 8 tracks in RMX you could use inside of your sequencer. For that way you could then use different effects on each of these groups, as well as bus them to different outputs or so forth for mixing. So there you go. So there's our thoughts for multis. Now we're going to take a look at drum kits. All right, drum kits. We're going to talk about a couple different things you can do with drum kits that you might not have thought about. Some of them are shown in some of the kits I've created. And let's take a look. First of all, I want to just show you some of the drum kits by hitting play on a little groove I did. And I'll change through kits. So here's Confused Hip Hopper. Danger Dance. Here's a Deep Pain Club. I love the next one. Dragon. Fire Dragon. So here's Hunting for More Money. We're always looking for more money, right? I'm going to use this one to show you a couple of tricks. First of all, if you have whatever your DAW is set to, make sure it says multi outputs, and now you can take the kick drum and put it over to its own channel output. One trick I want to show you here real quickly is that I'm using 2 parts for the snare sound. I have that and that, and together they complement each other really well. We could do the same thing with other sounds. The drum that you select determines where it's going to show up on the keyboard. It's a general MIDI drum kit map. So the hi-hats will always be on F sharp, G sharp, A sharp. You don't have access to making a drum kit where you have tons of samples across the whole keyboard. You have 8 parts total. If I don't need a ride cymbal, I could go over here and let's go to kicks. Let's say 808, 909. Turn on the settings, lights. That way it's going to reset the default drum sound. And let's go 808 low long. And now my kick drum is playing 2 parts. I have this, and I have this. I can output that to output B as well. And the toms, same way. If I don't need, say I don't need the clap, I could go to the clap and I could say, no, get rid of that, and go to toms. And here's Trailblaze. There's a really cool tom sound, which without it, so layering allows you to layer and get bigger drum sounds than just using a single drum sound at a time. One other trick I want to show you real quick is if you take all these guys back to output A. I didn't cover the master effects a lot in the other previous 3 parts of RMX, but it's something I want to talk about real quickly. Almost every multi and drum kit is going to use EQ and the limiter on the master effects. It's just kind of our standard thing we do with voicing. We can optimize, make it a little bit bigger sounding, and then hit sweet spots in the high and the low. But if you want, usually the bottom one's open. And so you can like choose flame distortion. Let's choose something like Trash Head. Or you choose other presets. I'm just control click or right click, and even just oven warm up without. Turn down a little bit. Just makes it a little bit bigger sounding. So you could use other effects. You could use phasers. again, right click, control click, and you can choose all sorts of different types of presets. So Master Effects is an area to look at that you can apply. The cool thing with Master Effects is this is the last thing everything goes to. So a multi or a drum kit is going to go to the Master Effects. So whatever effect you put there, everybody's going to be treated that way, unless you send them to separate outputs. If I send the kick drum to B, and let's go back to effects. Let's say flame distortion. Let's make it really distorted and nasty breakup, and find the right mix so you get a kick drum. It's totally dry because it's over here sent to its own output. So using the multi outputs, you can bypass something that you're applying to everything else in your drum kit sound. So it's a fun way to work with drum kits. And finally, one last thing I wanted to show you. Chaos. Talked about it earlier when we were talking about parts. Applying chaos. Let's go to the hi-hats. Go to chaos, turn it on, buzz. There you go, about 50%. Just little buzzy robotic things every now and then. It's kind of cool. The snare drum is really cool to turn on and have a little bit of reverse. Just every now and then it's gonna do a weird thing on you. So there you go. Chaos and all the stuff that Chaos Designer can do, applied to a couple different drum sounds, and then maybe automate, bringing those up and down. Cool. You got cool variety going on now with the drum kit. So now we're going to take a look at parts. So hang on. All right, now we're going to take a look at parts. And parts is something that hasn't been explored in the factory voicing of RMX. They only had so much time, and they focused on multis, which is made up of a lot of parts in a single thing that you save. I'll show you the architecture. Explain that to you for a second. There's 8 separate slots called parts. All 8 of these can be saved as a multi. And that's when you click down here and you choose one of these, and it loads up a whole bunch of stuff in each of these different slots. Those are a whole bunch of different parts playing at the same time to make whatever the groove is. So we're going to say multi clear. This will refresh everything to be blank. And parts is an option to build from scratch. And there's actually a couple of things you can do with parts that are really cool. For one, let's say that we were using from the expander libraries, from Backbeat, solid rock. Okay, so we got a nice rock groove. I'm gonna slow down my tempo. So let's say 110. All right. Now, if I want, I can go down here to parts, and I'm on 1. You have to click which number you want it to load to. So we want to put something in number 2 because number 1 is now full. Say part open, and here's your list. There's 100 different parts I've created, and you can make your own really easily. I'll show you in a minute. And let's say I want to go down here to mix, and I want to do simple conga. I think I got some in a room. Simple congas in a room. So it loads up. Boom. Now, these congas have an EQ and a room reverb from the Proverb all set up. So without having to do any setup of effects or anything, I have a really nicely mastered, ready to record, sounds nice, ambient conga. So we could go to 3, say part open. Let's add another part. Let's add shakers. Sweet 16ths in a room. So these will be shakers, and they have their own room reverb made up just for them. Cool. Now we can get a little trickier. Let's add, we don't want to go here, right? we're not doing that. We're doing part open. We're going to add something kind of weird. We have a whole bunch of different categories. You have pitch, noise, mix, filter, and chaos. Chaos will have randomized, unpredictable, weird stuff on it. Filter, sweeping. Here's a shaker dance. Here's a low sweep LFO. Let's try that. So now we have this with the sweeping filter going up and down, right? Kind of cool. And when you put it in the mix, it's a little off, you know. Let's go to part 5. Let's add a chaos, like gorilla with ticks is a fun one. And maybe we want that to be lower in pitch, so. And tone. So as you can see, I've built up from a simple groove. I've added 4 parts from this list of 100 parts. And I've got a cool mix, and I didn't have to add any effects. I didn't have to program any filters. I did it all for you. It's all there ready to go. So the power of parts is that you load one thing and it loads the groove. It loads like the effects, the filter sweeping, that's on the edit page. Some things have delay, some things have reverb, that's on the effects page. Gorillas with ticks, that had chaos, that's on the chaos page. I don't know if any of these had time designer. Oh, this one had Logic's 16A swing for the congas, just to be a little bit tighter to the groove. So that's a really quick way to build up something. You're in the mix and I need a shaker and I don't want it to be dry and I don't want to spend the time programming it. Just go to parts and load it. The other thing, I'm going to say multi-clear. This is the big wow. You ready? Here's a wow. Or we could say part open, and instead of that part, let's load a chaos, like a desert fog with ticks. So it's got this cool. Now, since settings is off, anywhere I go, yeah, there's some weird stuff going on. So if you want really weird, cool, random stuff, boom, there you go. Excuse me. I knew I shouldn't have eaten that for lunch. So anywhere you go now through the whole library, it's got the low fog with ticks settings. So here's a concept for you to think about. When you have settings turned on and you go through the library, it's loading a default. Everything you load has the same default where there's no filters, there's no effects, there's no nothing applied to anything. So you can make your own, you can make your own part, save it, load it, and then go through the library if you had certain things you wanted to be a little bit different. Maybe you wanted the filter to be turned on, ready to be used. Maybe you wanted a compressor on it. Set it up, go over here, save as a part, load that before you start going through the library, and now you can load your own custom default for when you go through the library. There's just a billion different ways to use this plugin. I could do 5 more reviews on it easily. I barely touched the surface, I think, in a lot of cases. But there's some more food for thought. It's very, very powerful. All right, let's take a look at Time Designer templates. Show you how to make your own. All right, next up is Time Designer templates. And this is one of the most exciting parts of Stylus RMX. By hitting Time Designer, the time button, you're entered into a window that has the ability to change timing, shift, swing, change the meter, come up with variations. There's all sorts of awesome things you can do. I'm going to show you on a drum loop from Burning Grooves. It's a swingy groove. By going up here to the triangle, to the plug and groove templates, to the straight ones, let's say Cold Pop Heart. Now you hear some kicks hitting at the same time that it's hitting with the snares. It's not happening here, right? Well, since it's kind of an 8th groove feel, there's a trick you can do where you go to the group assign. edit group, go to eighth notes and solo. So that way you've simplified it. Now when you go to the Time Designer templates and you turn this back on, you got the same groove, but you don't have doubling of kick and snares. So that's one of the most useful tricks, is to set the eighth notes to simplify before you start searching through the Time Designer templates, unless you want where the kick and snare hit at the same time, because it will round them back and forth timing wise. If there's a kick drum close to where the snare drum is, they get grouped to the same simplified timing event. So see right there, that's got a kick drum with it, because there's supposed to be a little eighth note pickup. So let me show you some of the other Time Designer grooves to show you where we can go. We could go to swing. This is a fun skippy swing. Here's Eat You Up. Let me go to the straight grooves. Let's go to hip hop. Or Amen. Showed this in part 2, I believe. So you can take anything from what it was quite dramatically. Now, how do you make these? And what if you want to make your own? Well, I'll show you how to do it. We're going to go to recycle for a minute. I recycled this already. These little lockdown segments are where there's a timing event. And I spit this out. I actually exported, is the correct technical term, not they save, into a recycle folder. So right here. So I'm going to hit play so that this plays. Let's drag it up and turn it on. So anything that you have as a MIDI file, it could be something you play in your sequencer, certain timing values. That's how I made some of the Time Designer templates. I also use recycle sometimes. But you make a MIDI file, then you drag it right up here to where it says drag MIDI file, and then you let go right here, and it's in. Make sure your power comes on, otherwise you won't hear it if your power's not been turned on up on the Time Designer. Then you go up here and you say save Time Designer preset, and it'll give you a chance to give it a different name and choose which folder. That's why I have the new project folder. If I was going to do something else here, I could call this Zep Groove. So now when I go up here to new project, there it is, ready to be used. So it's as easy as making a MIDI file, no matter where you make it. 2 measures, 4 measures, maybe at the most. Don't do a whole song. But what it does is it takes a look at the MIDI notes of when you played notes, and that's what gets imported into here to be used now as the replaying of this drum groove. It's brilliant. It's very, very cool to have that capability to pull something apart. All right, the last thing I want to show you is a little bit with Beatropolis. Like I showed at the beginning, you just run the Sage converter and you open up actually you don't even have to open up, you just use the folder and drag it over the top of the Sage converter, and it will begin the process of converting the entire library into the Stylus RMX format. Native recycle files will work in almost any type of sequencer. Everybody can import a recycle file. Stylus RMX has to import and actually convert it to a different format, so it doubles the library, because now you have the recycled version taking up hard drive space, and you have the Beatropolis RMX version taking up hard drive space, but it's not that much space, so it's not a huge issue. But what happens to find them, you go up here to the directories. Instead of core libraries, you go down to user libraries, and then right here you click to select to choose which of your libraries you want. If you've converted a lot of different recycle libraries, they each show up as a folder, which is what the top subdirectory is. And here they are. So we've got rock drum loops. Bunch of way too fast. These were recorded in my basement, by the way. I was pretty proud of how they came out. Then these other suites have full mixes and small mixes and breakdowns. Just an element. You got a remix, output, just a snare, just a kick, the random scanner. So lots of fun elements to play with. Oh, this shows one of the really important things when using this library. I don't know about a lot of other libraries. A lot of this stuff, when I made it, one trick to get nice long tails before things are cut off is to slow down the tempo when I'm recording the audio. So when I actually recorded this 120 beat per minute groove, I recorded it at like 55 beats per minute. So you can tell here, when you hear the kick and snare, hear the snare ring a long time. When you go to the full mix and it gets chopped up, it gets short. There's a trick to fix it so that it's back to long. Go to amp and make the release long, really long. It's back. That's the way it was recorded. Because see how long that sample is? And there's no artificial recycle. If there's a 16th note right after it, recycle tries to make the tail. But it doesn't do a very good job, and it requires editing and all sorts of steps we have to do. And it's a lot easier just to slow down the loops and play them slow. And you get nice long tails. So when you're playing through the Beatropolis library, quite often you'll have to go over to the release slider and crank it up. And that way it will play and have, instead of, that's kind of cool too. So it just depends on how you want to use the library. If you want to do it for kind of weird, surprising things like that, you can. Or you can make the release long, and that's the way it's supposed to sound. All right, well, that's it. My goodness. I'm working on patches for Omnisphere. I'm working on patches for Ace, which is a really incredible new synthesizer from Yuhi. Go to acesynth.com. I did a whole bunch of patches. That's one thing that I did. That I didn't finish these power reviews because I was making patches for that, among other things. I'm also working on patches for Massive, which are coming out really, really cool. And I'm looking at Absinthe, and the latest version of Absinthe won't work with my computer, so I have to upgrade my computer to use Absinthe 5, which has some really cool new features in it. So we'll see. Might do some patches for that. So stay tuned. More to come. See you later. Bye.